All right.
I'm out here. Can you hear me?
I got you now.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome. This is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. I'm your host, Jeremy, back in the studios here at All Points TV. It's a beautiful, gorgeous day, spring day. And, excuse me, we're just getting our speakers all adjusted here.
Can you hear me now? Is it okay? Or
we're good.
Is it cutting in out? Or?
No, it sounds good now.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. How are you doing, folks? Back in the studios here, like I was saying. I'm glad to be here today. It's beautiful outside. Spring is here. Finally feels like it a little bit. Mid-40s today. It's not too bad, right?
I'd rather if it was 60s, but yeah, that's all right.
It's getting there. It's getting there. So, hey, I got some stuff I want to share with you today. We got some events coming up at the Genesee County Compassion Club to let you know what's coming up here. Also got some news for you that I want to share with you today. And, man, I just feel so chill. I think it's just the spring's coming on. I just feel like relaxed all of a sudden. It's nice.
Yeah, you're geeked up towards it, even though you like skiing.
Yeah, I didn't get something else. You just made me remember something. Thank you, John. Skis. Get those back. All right. Mental note. Got to get the rentals back. All right. All right. Stuff we got coming up at the G3C. First thing is our soup kitchen. That's coming up here shortly. Tuesday. We could use your guys' help down there, definitely. And, maybe you'll be more inclined to come out now that it's warmer. Maybe. Tuesday, soup kitchen. Come on down, all right? We need your help. We need it. Next thing coming up is our Adopt a Highway. I definitely want to make sure I mention that. That is going to be, April 13th, Saturday. And we could use the more help, the better. I mean, we definitely need you guys out there. I know it's a Saturday. You want to be at the club. But if you can meet us out there at M13, that's great. Or meet us at the club. We can carpool there. Whatever works. But 10 a.m. we'll be out there cleaning on M13. Hopefully it'll be nice weather. Again, that is on the 13th. So 13/13. Remember that, all right? April 13th. We need you guys. All right. 10 years of that. 10 years of cleaning that sucker. Woo! And of course, coming up soon is our 420 party. Man, I'm geeked about this. All right. It's a Saturday, which is going to be awesome. We're going to have the hot dog guy back. We love our hot dog guy. He's always there for us. We're going to have a whole bunch of other food as well. We're also going to have Reverend Right Time and the First Cousins of Funk. It's going to be fantastic. And some other surprises and guests as well. So April 20th, man, this is the first year that we've had a 420 celebration and, it's legal. So, I mean, I know that the things haven't changed for us down at the club on how we do things. A lot of times folks ask, and if you're one of those folks, or maybe you share the podcast and spread some information, but our club is medical. It's always been medical, and it still is today. So even though cannabis is available, it is, wow, got a little feedback there. It is available as recreational to everybody 21 years and age of older. To get into the club, you still have to be a medical marijuana card holder. All right. So that's our rules. That's how we do it. But at any rate, party is coming up April 20th. You're definitely going to want to be there. Tickets are $20 in advance or $25 at the door. You get your tickets at the club, of course. Let's see. What else we got going on? Yes, other events I want to mention is the Caregiver Cup. It's coming up soon. I believe that's in June. You can check out the Cannabis Corner, George, for tickets. They're available at the club. It's going to be an awesome event, music and camping, a whole weekend event at a fairgrounds up in Birch Run. It looks to be spectacular. So check that out. And also another event I want to make mention is this Saturday, which is Hash Bash. I believe it's the 48th annual Hash Bash. It's getting up there.
That's it, yeah.
It's up there.
I've heard about it when I was in high school, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So you guys, if you want to, get on down to the Diag, which is right on campus, or actually it's just to the side of campus, U of M University, right down there, and things will be going on basically all day long. They're going to have the Monroe Street Fair, and just as a friendly reminder, don't consume cannabis on campus. All right? But it's sure to be lit this year. Again, first year that this stuff is going on where we've had, of marijuana available. I mean, it's so easy to say, but it sounds so complex. It's still a surprise to me to be able to even say that. But yeah, Michigan, marijuana, it's on. And Hash Bash 420, I mean, it's going to be huge this year. So you guys will definitely want to make it out to these events and other things like the Caregiver Cup. I know we got the High Times Cannabis Cup coming as well. So, especially on this side of the state and in our particular area, I mean, this is prime area for cannabis in Michigan. Literally, we have people coming from all over the state, and it's no surprise. I mean, this is the place. So, I mean, it just makes me so happy to be able to say that. You know what I mean? Like, if there was a Humboldt County in Michigan, it'd be Genesee. And how freaking cool is that? I think that our club is a big part to do with that. And I know that our county administration, if you will, being reasonable is also a part of that. You know, allowing us to exist and be there. So kudos to everybody. Pat on the back. You guys win. Woo! It's cool. It's awesome. There's a lot of other places in Michigan that are not anywhere like it. And I think we forget like what a utopia Genesee County is. So, all right. Anyways, I want to share some news with you guys today as well. Get through some of these articles before my phone dies. But I saw in the news today, Georgia is jumping on the bandwagon. And actually, it's not really true. Georgia jumped on the bandwagon back in 2015. Actually, this is how messed up things are. All right. You have to understand how much money influences regulation. And when you ask for protection and you get it in the form of regulation, just understand that most of that regulation has more to do with protecting business interests than protecting you as a consumer. So this is my case in point. This is a perfect example. Georgia legalized medical cannabis for people in 2015. And as of today, basically, their legislature just passed a bill that would allow people actually a place to go get cannabis at. So how ridiculous is that? I mean, we're talking 4 years later, and okay, you guys can have it, but there's nowhere to go get it. Well, what does that do for the person who just found out that they need this? You know, where are they supposed to do? Drive to Colorado or something? I mean, and you're not supposed to cross state lines either. So they're still in a jam, if you will. And it took the legislature down there 4 years to get their act together. So anyways, this is what they've come up with, and it's not exactly a great solution for the folks in Georgia, and it is a perfect example of what I was just talking about. What they're going to be doing is licensing six companies to produce and sell the cannabis to medical patients in Georgia. So, I mean, you can imagine, obviously, right now the registry in Georgia is a lot smaller than what we have in Michigan, so there's not nearly as many medical marijuana patients down there, but there certainly will be. I mean, Georgia is a well-populated state, and there's certainly going to be needed more than just 6 companies producing and selling all of the cannabis in the state. I mean, if that's not a monopoly, I don't know what is. And this is what their legislature just passed today. So while some may look at this as like, oh, yay, cannabis, and, you know, another win for the weed, I don't really think that way. I think this is a win for capitalist. You know what I mean? Not that capitalism is all that bad, but I mean, this is beyond that. These people are taking advantage of a situation, and I'm not in favor of that at all. So anyways, Georgia, people down there better have your heads on straight, and you better be talking to your legislature, because if you want to be a part of this industry, you got to speak up. All right, because right now they're not doing that. It doesn't look like they want you to do that at all, actually. So and to the contrast, let's talk about Michigan. So Michigan has, obviously everybody's aware of the license program that's now online, places getting licensed, so on and so on. One of the big places, the dispensaries, let me cut to the chase here. A judge just ruled that the deadline for March 31st concerning Michigan's medical marijuana dispensaries is null and void, per se. So the state had enacted another one of these deadlines, and I think this is the 4th one, if I'm not mistaken, of when dispensaries that are not yet licensed, mind you, these places are in line to be licensed, so they've submitted an application. State hasn't gotten to them yet. And the state put a deadline and said, if we don't get to your application by March 31st, then you have to shut down until we do get to it and you are approved. So, at any rate, this was affecting over 50 different businesses across the state. These are businesses, like I said, that have submitted applications, i.e., you know, gone through a hell of a process, paid a lot of money to do that, and paid fees to do so as well. And the judge said, you know what, you guys are in the correct, you're in the right. and you should not have to close. So he suspended the state's order indefinitely at this point. They don't have a deadline, but he said basically those businesses can stay open and they do not have to close as of yet. Another thing that was added on to this, and I'm not sure if it was a part of the judge's order or some other type of action, maybe by the governor or by Lara, but at any rate, they also stated that these places, these licensed dispensaries and the unlicensed ones as well, could continue getting product from caregivers. And I thought this was interesting that they would extend this. So that they have, so that's a good thing. And I also thought that it was interesting some of the reasoning that the state put out. The judge in particular and the state's remarks. And in the past, when you've seen them extend the deadline, they specifically stated that they were extending this deadline due to patients' availability. In other words, we need to have places available so that patients have a place to get their medicine from. One time they extended the deadline stating that the places that were licensed to produce hadn't produced enough to supply the places that were licensed to sell. So therefore, caregivers could continue supplying the places to sell, so on and so forth. So these are the past reasons that were provided. I saw comments and remarks from one producer as of recently that stated that they had more than enough in supply to supply their licensed dispensaries. And they were kind of poo-pooing on the caregivers deadline being extended in their comment. But I thought it was interesting that the state, when they extended their deadlines this time, they did, mention patient availability, of course, but they also mentioned the fairness of the process itself. And I think this is the first time we've seen them actually, directly address that particular issue. And I think there should be some addressment to that. I mean, if these places have paid their fees, just like the places that have got a license and waiting in line, should they have to shut down? I think absolutely not. Should they still be able to get medicine from caregivers? Absolutely. I mean, these are licensed caregivers. The medicine is still getting tested. There's no reason to not allow this. And in my opinion, to continue to allow this indefinitely. I think that it should just be a part of the program where licensed dispensaries should be able to continue getting their product from licensed caregivers. I think it provides a legal means for caregivers to continue producing. It provides legal access for patients to be able to get their medication, and it also provides more variety, which I think is the most important factor from a patient's perspective, to the medications that are available. So some of these medications that are coming from these licensed produced facilities are not what the patients are looking for. They're not what they are accustomed to. And so I think there's something to be said for that as well. So at any rate, the judge extended the deadline on these places. They can continue to operate. There's no deadline as of yet. The state's got their meetings coming up. As far as Lara's meeting, the board is now dissolved, so we shouldn't be hearing from them much more. And I think that's about it. So let me pull up another article here. I wanted to share this with you as well, and I know that some folks were excited about this. This is the SAFE bill, or Safe Banking Act. So let me pull this up here. This was introduced, I think we talked about it on the podcast, and the reason I'm bringing it up again is because the House committee that was in charge of reviewing this just passed it 2 days ago. So, I mean, it still has rungs on the ladder to go up before it becomes a law, but it's certainly a good thing. So let me get this up here. I'm trying to pull this up. Apologize. All right, so it was the House Financial Services Committee voted 45-15 to advance the bill after amending it to include provisions to provide a safe harbor for insurance companies and improve access of financial services to minority and women-owned cannabis businesses. Blah, blah, blah. They go on to say, it's a regarding historic step, critical step, so on and so forth. I mean, it still has to go through the entire House. This was just a committee that it passed. It also has to go through a Senate as well. So there's a long ways to go, but at least it has got through the first stage in the process. It basically, in a nutshell, it would allow banking services to cannabis businesses and ancillary businesses as well. So not just the licensed facilities, but businesses that may operate, and providing additional services to the industry, and obviously are associated with cannabis or medical marijuana or what have you. But at any rate, right now, those services are completely offline, not available to these businesses. You can imagine the headaches that it creates, and has been well documented of the different difficulties that have come along with having a cash-based business. But at any rate, this is a good thing. It is moving forward, and I wanted to bring it up on the podcast so you guys know what's going on. Once it gets to the House, we'll let you know, and we'll keep track of its progress. It's not the first bill. My blasé attitude right now towards this thing is because it's not the first bill like this to go through this particular process. Hopefully this one will be the one. But at any rate, moving on. Now one more story here I wanted to share with you. If I could pull it up here. My phone's about to die, so I do apologize. But the story that I was trying to pull up here for you is about California's cannabis problem, if you will. And I think that we might see something like this in Michigan. We might not. It depends on, I think, our administration, law enforcement, interpretation, direction from LARA. These are all things that could affect the outcomes of Michigan's market for marijuana, if you will. And of course, I'm including recreational and medical together in that statement. We're just looking at it as a market, if you will. And the reason I'm bringing it up here is California, and this is an article you can check out for yourself, but the gist of this is that California's cannabis market is essentially still being supplied in the majority by the black market. So California, as you well know, has been a medical marijuana state since 1996. They've had dispensaries out there. They passed recreational, and they passed bills to roll out their market, if you will, for recreational. Along with that, they have a lot of fees, a lot of taxes, a lot of cost to not just the consumer, but ultimately it's always going to the consumer, but to the businesses and to the people that are getting licenses and so on and so forth. So I think some people may have seen this, but there are many posts on the internet showing people going into a California dispensary, purchasing their recreational cannabis, eighths going as much as $100 or more by the time the taxes and the fees and everything else were added on. And I saw quite a few examples of this from different dispensaries, so it wasn't just one isolated location. And the majority of the fees on there, or the majority of the cost involved in the purchase, was not the cannabis. It was the fees. It was the taxes that were associated onto it. And essentially, these fees are so expensive that the cannabis that is available through the regulated market is way overpriced. And it's a lot easier and cheaper and simpler to go to the guy down the street who's got a backpack or whatever, or maybe he's coming to your door like a pizza delivery man. It's pretty well advanced market out in California. But at any rate, you're getting better stuff. You're getting better stuff, better quality, better price. And the biggest thing is that price. And that's what is, I guess, the biggest hamper right now that they're talking about in California that is on these new licensed facilities. They're unable to operate essentially because the government is just stepped in and said, look, you guys want to operate, make it legal, fine, but we're going to charge you up the yin-yang. And essentially they did such a fine job of that it made the illegal stuff still enticing. And part of legalization, part of the mantra of that has been eliminate the black market. And the only way you can do that is to have a product that is available, readily regulated, legal, and it has to be competitive as well. You can't just say, well, this one's legal, that's why it's 100% more than the one that's illegal. 9 out of 10 people, if they could reach into the box without anybody else seeing them, are going to go in and pull out the illegal one, because to them it's the same thing, and why would you pay twice as much just because this one is legal? And that's what's happening in California, essentially. So I think it's a lesson to be learned. I think that Michigan and other states, like Georgia, for example, we just talked about, we have to keep that in mind if we really are trying to eliminate the black market and the illegal activity that goes along with that. You know, and a lot of people will tell you that the black market supports gang activity, and it supports violent crimes and human trafficking and so on, and it may very well do those things. But there's a lot of people involved in the black market that have no part of that. They're just simply a consumer, and they have, most of them would probably have great disdain for those types of things. They just want to get a sack of weed, and I think that's the simplicity of it that the government needs to keep in mind. And some of the regulations that we put in place here in Michigan already are way out of line. I mean, we have to have, we need a relook, even though this was just passed, essentially, but we need a relook, a re-examination of our qualifying factors for how do you become a business. We need to have it be broken down, or at least make the micro businesses more available. We need to have another look at our testing protocols. What is acceptable, what isn't. We need to have another look at what type of chemicals are going to be allowed for plants. The list that we have right now, it doesn't come anywhere even close to what you would use for your regular, not house plants, but gardening plants, the type that you eat, edibles, like carrots and apples and whatnot. So, I mean, there's chemicals that you can use on those things that you cannot use on cannabis according to Michigan's list. Now, some would say it's a good thing or bad, but in reality, I think what I'm trying to say is that we've set the bar a little too high as a state. We need to back it down a little bit, and then we need to watch our P's and Q's on this licensing and taxing and so on and so forth, because it's already getting out of hand. The fees that the state set, I think, are atrocious. They're absolutely ridiculous. $50,000, or now it's up to $65,000 for a license fee. And as most of you well know, that's only one piece of the pie. So, are we as bad as Georgia? No, certainly not. There's certainly worse off cases. Indiana is another one. Ohio was going to be one. These are just basically big corporate monopolies. I think we need to have a more competitive market, because not only does it make it more available and a better market for the patient, but it also helps eliminate the black market as well. So if we can cling to the messages that we portrayed during the battle for legalization and continue to use those to direct legislation as it continues to come online, I think that's what we need to retain our focus on. I think that would be our best bet. It sounds legit, doesn't it? I mean, when we were advocating for legalization, and people said responsible adult use, taxation, we got that. You know what I mean? Maybe we went a little too overboard on the taxation, because right behind that, we said get rid of the black market. And these two things are correlated. So we have to remember that, and hopefully our state will. Looks like California didn't, and they're suffering the consequences. You're not going to have a regulated market if they can't even compete. It won't happen. And I could bet that you will see changes to California's processes in the future. I mean, certainly they're not going as robust as Colorado did. So clearly there's a difference in how the programs were administered, how fees were charged, in proportion to the business and so on and so forth. And they've created themselves an issue. So let's not get too greedy, Mr. and Mr. Regulators. All right. That's about it for the show. In fact, I'm out of battery. I'm down to 1%. So that's all the news I have for you today. But anyway, I want to remind you guys, 420 party is going to be awesome. Please mark your calendars. It's Saturday. It's going to be sweet. The Saturday before that, Adopt a Highway, April 13th. Need you guys out there on M13. And then our soup kitchen. Need you guys there as well. Also, we have golf league forming, softball league forming. So if you guys are interested, you can sign up at the club. Definitely love to have you there. And I believe there's a whole new menu items as far as our food goes down at the club. So if you haven't been there in a little while, come on down and check it out. I know we got some delicious things. I'm looking to try some myself, but definitely want to see you guys down there. So come on down to the club. Love to have you guys come there. And for those of you that are already there, thank you. I love you. All right. See you guys soon. Have a great week. Enjoy your spring, and smoke one for me. All right. See ya.